Dear colleagues, it's a great pleasure to speak here about our project. And first of all, I want to apologize because we are speaking in English, because we have only 15 minutes, and it would be horrible if my Italian, Marie would be capable, but not me. So many apologize for that. And first of all, I want to thank the organizers for making this wonderful event happening. It's really a great pleasure to meet you all and to have conversations. And yeah. So we started our project Sant'Antioco, first of all, to better understand the Nuragic period. And we thought that a very good key to understand the Nuragic period is indeed to make a landscape project. As landscape project, as we all know, the Nuragic are spread over the hills, and we wanted to understand them better. But for a landscape project, of course, we have to look also after the other periods, and we will give you just hopefully an interesting insight into the project. Is it good? Yes. So what we try to do in the last almost 8, 9, 10 years is we started with a pedestrian survey in the Canal Plain, which is marked here in yellow. Then we did a target survey, especially in those areas where there's a thick vegetation, and although it's impossible to walk in lines there. We did for 2 seasons an underwater survey in 2 bays, in the Canasapone in the west and in Maladrogia in the east. And we started excavations in the area, what you all know about Protiaqua. So a bit in the wider area, we'll see later on. And we did some geomorphology. We started geomorphology, and we will proceed with that the next years as well. And because we want to understand the environmental base, we thought we gonna follow with the river and the Canal Plain, which is our focus, is of course largely shaped by the Rio Maladrogia, or Rio di Triga, how you call it, has different names, which runs from the hills in the north towards the south before it really enters the sea at the side of Maladrogia. And if you have a look at the watershed, what you see here in the central part, this area is the water catchment area of the Rio Maladrogia, and that's the reason why it is extremely important to understand the river, to understand the environmental base we will work on. So we did some geomorphological investigations together with the firm company Intervento, directly in Maladrogia. You see 4 drillings we used here. You can see that on top. So these are the first results of the geomorphology. You see the 4 drillings here, and what we can identify is 2 different marine sediments here in the west because of the Museo. Does it work? Yes. Here we have the different marine sediments, one darker one and a lighter one. And by that we can understand the development of the bay. So what we can reconstruct in that base is that in the 6 millennium already we have a small lagoon. And the lagoon started to be bigger in the 5th millennium. And slowly it was filled up by sediments during the 4th and until the 3rd millennium. It produces a kind of small bay. Here on the 3rd picture. Yeah, sorry, I'm confused. And we have a small beach which makes the bay a bit bigger. So we have a nice resource for fishing and collecting, etc. But for us, in the Neolithic, but for us it was the main question why this bay has been filled up within 1,500 years, about 7 meters of sedimentation, to give us a hint about the environmental issues on the site. And the question is, of course, is it anthropogenic or is it natural? And one aspect is, of course, that the sea level rises, that there was a kind of equilibrium. But on the other hand, we wanted to have a look also in the environment. As we did the survey in the Canal Plain, there was a site already identified by Santoni as a Montieri site. And however, our survey brought to light a very high density of finds dating what we think, but we will ask our colleagues, of course, is also towards the early Neolithic And we think that we have a whole different periods of Neolithic in that Western Canal plain, and that their activity, agricultural activity and pastoral activity, produced an erosion in that period that goes into the river and finally silted up the whole bay into later periods. So what we had until now in our survey is we don't have anything which follows the Tzien period. We don't have the clavo or something right now. So what we thought, the only details we have later and are finally on the southern plateau. So the Hypolitic and later periods are more or less in that area. We're coming closer now to Kotiabo. The only sites you could identify for the 3rd millennium are cap sites, and those sites which are located at the Killer Intel fence. So the menhir, you all know, were used as the markings for crucial places in the landscape, as for instance one in Intervento and the other is on the Passiones Hill. And nearby there is also a small stone salvo. You also know from visiting probably, which can maybe date it in comparison more to Baranta in the 3rd millennium. So from an ethnographic perspective, we know that these kind of media are, of course, used as markers for pastoral groups. We don't know if it's really happening for the past, but the such hypothesis can at least support it in this area from the different medallions we have there at the beginning of the 20th century, though at least then it's used in a pastoral way.
Coming through the eastern part of Contiacqua, or the site called Crisiones, it is probably no accident that the earliest traceable site in this site of the Middle Bronze Age here is located close to this stone circle that Constance already mentioned, and located directly next to the already mentioned menhir that you can see here in the south of the site. This menhir appears as it guards the entrance to the site when coming from the plateau of Contiacqua. And, well, apart from the question whether this nomadic inhabitants of the site relate a kind of collective memory to this stone, the menhir, and its erectors, this menhir gives us an indication of the long frequentation period and shaping of this area we called Crisiones Hill, or in some publications also Contiacqua B, or it has different names. During the Middle Bronze Age at least, the corridor Lage sits on top of the hill and dominates the whole area, where the outer western wall is still visible today, and partly intact, at least from the visible from the plain. Though its expansion and precise structure is still puzzling to us. The area below the Nulage is flanked by rock outcrops surrounding this plateau and slopes mostly very gently down to the east, where the excavated part is visible here on the map in the northern part. It's framed in red. In this northern part of the mentioned excavation brought to light several structures of the Middle Bronze Age settlement. The most prominent one is the so-called Cabana G, a massive drop-shaped building measuring about 8 to 5 meters. It is here, in the drawn plan, you can see it here. And further structures were found to the west, and even an open space where no architectural structures were found here in the northernmost part, like a terrace looking over the whole south of the Canal Plain. And also this place yields several features that attest for at least one hearth structure and related activities. Apart from the typical architecture in stone, we could also identify traces of the upper walls or roofs that were made from organic material like reed or branches in combination with clay, through some imprints and surfaces on burnt pieces like these two. And the necessary raw material for this could have been gathered, for example, along the stream next to the settlement on the east, which likely served as a water resource too. Other daily practices were also visible in other finds and features on the site. Grinding stones, obsidian flakes, hearth, and other installations point to various household activities, and the pottery in general corresponds to Middle Bronze Age and early recent Bronze Age times. Some actually only found in southwestern Sardinia, and especially here on Sant'Antioco, visible in the publication from Forstieri from the 1990s that were found close to the Torcanai and also here in the city area in Via Castello. They are, at least I think, at this point related to a kind of regional style or tradition and or a transition phase at the end of the Middle Bronze Age with little comparisons published until now. The petrographic analysis revealed that mostly the simple vessels like Tegami and Zeliep were mostly made from immediately local clay located on the site of Chrysionis itself, which is also true for the architectural clay that we saw earlier. But other fabrics are present too, and those hint to sources of raw materials of the similar geological backgrounds, but not on the site of Chrysionis itself. Although it is possible that many different raw materials were used here, we have to assume that these neuralgic regional networks have had an impact on the pottery assemblage here on site as well, and we see the results of these common exchange practices in the neuralgic period within these networks. In this sense, we have to zoom back out on the single side into the landscape of southern Sant'Antioco, where here the Comidon throne is basically on top of the Chrysionis hill and could be seen from afar, as is the case for most Nuraghi. And on the other hand, a great part of the plain and the surrounding hills were also visible from the site, as you can see here in the visibility analysis, similar to the ones we have seen in orange. But sooner or later, this whole space, the Canal Plain, was also a shared space.
So in the course of the end of Middle Bronze Age, Late Bronze Age, there's a massive building activity on the island with within about 300 or 400 years, Tower Nuraghi emerged on almost every hill on the Canal Plain. You see the red dots, these are the different kind of Tower Nuraghi. And this building activity needs a massive man or woman power, which can only achieve by a larger population. And these people must have been nourished, fed, and for which is an intensification of agriculture necessary, pastoral activity, etc. So the density here is so high that we think it must not have been different groups around the canal. It's probably one group, a kind of clan, who controls the whole area. And what we can see now on the right side, you have the visibility reconstruction. And what you can see from the Nuraghi, almost every area is visible. And especially the canal, which is kind of marked in a bit of reddish, yes, that's it, perfect. The agricultural core of the area, you can see almost every corner. You can see each person entering. You can not only see the area, you can see movement in the area. So somebody is going in and out, you will spot it. Every person who has entered the field. What is also interesting, if you travel by boat around the island, you can't see the canal plain. Only the hills where the towers are on top, but not the agricultural core. It's very good protected. So another thing what we can see by the visibility analysis is that now several Nuraghi are focusing not only on the canal plain, but you can oversee the coast and the base. And from the view channel, I was agreeing that especially Nuraghi Marteto on top of Maladrogia, the geomorphology was perfect viewpoint to see all the area. That's the reason we started here the underwater survey. And what we detect during the seasons, two seasons, is that we have several ballast piles in form of boats These kind of ballast piles were used in the Iron Age until Roman period, and we found also pottery related to these periods. Okay, it's a bit late for us, but I think it's interesting for most of you. But we are sure if we can excavate there, we will have also material underwater. And the same, if we go to the western side, the more stormy side, there's Calasapone. It's similar. We have here not very well preserved, where you see the arrow with the Novagan figure, but it is on the peninsula and it perfectly oversees the entrance of the Calasapone. And that's the reason also we started our underwater survey there, and what we found was, for instance, a composite anchor of the 6th to 5th millennium century, you see, but also a massive stone anchor, which is a typical stone anchor, but with these two holes. It's more a simpler design, which we have because they have these sand anchors with the two poles, and we found also some signs which seem to us a separately known signs. So we have indeed a really good indication that we have maritime activity by the 13th century, and maybe even relations to Cyprus. So what we now started, we tried to understand the formation phase with the Middle Bronze Age, and now we wanted, of course, to understand why is it possible that they spread all over the plain and had these wonderful view sheds and everything. And that's the reason we started now to work, we wanted to understand also the economic infrastructure for these building activities, which must have been the backbone for everything. Therefore, we recently started also to work in the late Bronze Age side of Côte d'Arbois, which you can see here. Here's the corridor Noraga, and here's the western part, and you all know the complex Noraga on the hill. And we have the impression that the people there lived much more entangled with the water source, and you better know than us, Côte d'Arbois, water and caves, and there are a lot of water sources and a lot of water installations. So what we did the last 2 seasons, it's not a lot of course, but we found architecture of a house probably, together with an olive press. So we think we have a cultural activity, olive or wine, we haven't decided yet. And it's not on top next to the Novaga, it's in the valley next to the water resources. And then we have, of course, the water resource, the installations, you know if you're living in the area. And we started to excavate them at the very beginning. And we identified also terraces just below the settlements. And we think the water installation go together with the terrace management. So they really started to intensify agricultural activity to feed all these people. And of course, the pots you all know, I hope we can do something in the future together with the colleagues here. And what we also started is an environmental investigation of the pond of Venareto, but it's not that finalized here. So you see, we finished some things and we started some new things, and I hope we will proceed with this wonderful cooperation here. And I want to thank the people here, of course the teams, the community, the Superintendenza, for all the help and support we had in the last years to develop. Thanks a lot.